On a humid Tuesday in May, 21,000 feet above the South China Sea, a high-stakes game of chicken was about to backfire in the most expensive way possible. An Australian RAAF P-8 Poseidon, essentially a modified Boeing 737 packed with more sensors than a spy satellite, was flying a routine pattern through international airspace. Then the radio crackled. On the horizon, a speck of gray materialized into the sleek, deadly silhouette of a Chinese Su-35 superflanker. To the Chinese pilot, the P-8 looked like a slow, defenseless airliner. He thought he was the predator. He thought he was there to bully an intruder out of his sky. What that pilot didn't realize was that he was flying straight into a digital trap. By the time he returned to his base, he would have unknowingly handed over the source code to China's most advanced fighter jet. He didn't just fail his mission, he compromised an entire fleet. Today we are breaking down the intelligence heist of the century, how a single moment of cockpit ego gave the West the digital DNA of the Su-35, and why the Five Eyes intelligence network is still smiling about it today. Act 1. The digital vacuum, electronic warfare. To understand why the Australians were actually happy to see this fighter jet, you have to understand what the P-8 Poseidon actually is. It's not just a plane, it's a flying supercomputer. Specifically, it's equipped with the ANAL Q240 as a digital vacuum cleaner. Most fighter pilots are taught that their radar is their greatest weapon. The Su-35 is equipped with the Irbis-E, one of the most powerful radars ever put in a nose cone. It's designed to find targets 400 kilometers away. The Chinese pilot did exactly what he was trained to do. He locked onto the Australian plane. In the world of electronic warfare, this is like screaming your name into a megaphone in a silent room. See, every radar has a unique signature. It's not just a wave, it's a specific pattern of pulses, frequencies, and power outputs. Usually these signatures are the most guarded secrets in the military. But because the Chinese pilot stayed locked on for nearly 20 minutes, the P-8 had enough time to record the entire dialect of that radar. Why does this matter? Because now that signature is sitting in an allied database. The next time any Su-35 in the Pacific turns on its radar, every Australian and American ship will see a giant digital red flag. The Su-35's electronic stealth didn't just fade, it was deleted. Act 2, thermal mapping, the X-ray vision. But the P-8 crew wasn't just listening, they were looking. And they weren't using binoculars. Under the chin of the P-8 sits the MX-20HD electro-optical turret. This camera system is terrifying. It can read a license plate from 25,000 feet. But when a fighter jet is sitting only 130 feet away, the MX-20 isn't just looking at the plane, it's looking through it. By using the infrared channel, the Australians were mapping the heat signature of the Su-35. This is where it gets technical. They could see exactly how hot the engine exhaust was, around 1,200 degrees Celsius. They could see the avionics bays running at 180 degrees Celsius, which told them exactly where the flight computers are located. They could even see the warm spots where the hydraulic lines run beneath the metal skin. Why is this a gift? Because of how modern missiles work. An AIM-9X Sidewinder isn't just a heat seeker anymore. It's an imaging missile. It looks for a specific thermal shape. Thanks to this pilot, Western engineers now have a 4K thermal blueprint of the Su-35. They know exactly where the vitals are. They can program a missile to ignore the engines and aim specifically for the flight computer bay or the fuel lines. The Chinese pilot literally showed the world where his Achilles heel was. Act 3, the secret of thrust vectoring. Now let's talk about the stunt. The Su-35 is famous for its thrust vectoring. Most planes steer using air moving over their wings. But the Su-35's engine nozzles can pivot in any direction, allowing it to perform maneuvers that seem to defy physics. The pilot decided to perform a barrel roll around the P-8. To a casual observer, it was a display of incredible skill. To the Australian sensor operators, it was a complete technical demonstration. The P-8 sensors logged every micro movement of those nozzles. They recorded the response times, the deflection angles, and how the plane's flight computer corrected for the turbulence. This is gold dust for intelligence. If you know the math behind how a plane stabilizes itself, you can design electronic warfare signals to disrupt that process. Imagine a future engagement where an allied electronic warfare suite sends a signal that tricks the Su-35's flight computer into thinking it's falling. The computer would try to correct a problem that doesn't exist, potentially causing the pilot to lose control or even causing the airframe to rip itself apart. Act 4. The magnesium suicide. The encounter reached its breaking point when the Chinese pilot decided to get lethal. He accelerated, cut directly in front of the P-8's nose, and dumped a cloud of magnesium flares. These flares burn at 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit, about 2,000 degrees Celsius. They are designed to trick heat-seeking missiles, but by firing them directly into the P-8's engines, the pilot was trying to cause FOD, foreign object damage. It worked. The P-8's number 2 engine ingested the burning fragments. The airflow shattered. The engine stalled. The cockpit filled with the smell of burning metal and the sound of emergency alarms. The Australians dropped 1,800 feet and declared a mayday. The Chinese pilot likely returned to base thinking he'd won. He'd damaged the intruder. But in reality, he just handed over his final, most guarded secret, the spectral signature of his defense system. Every flare has a unique chemical burn, a specific color of heat. Because the P-8's sensors were recording at thousands of frames per second, the West now has the optical key to China's flares. In a real war, an Allied missile will see those flares and say, "That's not a jet, that's a magnesium flare, ignore it." By trying to break the Australian plane, he made every Su-35 in the Chinese Air Force more vulnerable to every missile in the Western arsenal. The strategic fallout. The P-8 limped back to Darwin. It needed 6 weeks of repairs, but within 24 hours, the data it carried was shared across the Five Eyes intelligence network. The Su-35's radar frequencies, cataloged, its heat signature, mapped, its flight software, reverse engineered, its flares solved. Beijing sent a fighter to deliver a message of strength. Instead, they handed over a user manual for their most advanced aircraft. It was an expensive mistake, one that ensures that if these two aircraft ever meet in actual combat, the Australians won't just be watching, they'll be winning. If you think that pilot is in a lot of trouble with his superiors, hit the like button. And to see why the US is now upgrading its own jets based on this data, click subscribe to our channel for more real-world military analysis and defense technology breakdown.